Columbus discovering America the most significant thing to happen to the human species? Early back when humans were hunter-gatherers, they never really settled down. Rather, they followed the herds. During this time, an ice age hit. Well, what is an ice age? An ice age means it is so cold that when the moisture evaporates from the ocean, it goes to the clouds. The clouds go over the land. It doesn't rain, it snows. The snow falls and then it stays. So the water that had lifted up from the ocean does not return to the ocean. It accumulates on the land. This accumulation, when it is significant and sustained, we call glaciers. Glaciers, it's not itself snowfall. It is compressed snow that's basically changed state into this ice river that flowed very slowly back to the ocean. But the oceans were getting drained faster than they were getting replenished. So during the ice age, the ocean levels dropped, exposing the land bridge between Asia and what is now Alaska, basically North America. Our ancestors who got out of Africa came into Europe. Some stayed and others kept wandering. Some stayed low above the Mediterranean. Others went higher. They populated Asia. They kept walking because there's a land bridge there. They kept walking, not because they know it's a bridge, but because it is more land. So they walk and they enter North America. From there, the only way you can go is south at that point. The weather gets a little better. The ice age ends. The glaciers melt back into the ocean levels rise, closing the land bridge, stranding a branch of the human species for 10,000 years. Those humans who made it across that land bridge and spread out into North America, Central America, and South America have only a few parent families as their genetic origin. Some research, according to some research, it's 8 lineage populated the entire North and South America continents. Then the land bridge breaks. Now you have Europe, Asia, Africa, and North and South America, and they know nothing of one another. Two separate branches of the human species. The Vikings' influence compared to the Europeans was near zero. We're talking about influence here. Had this continued, the species would have developed much differently. Now Columbus crosses the Atlantic, makes contact with humans. This is the first time this has happened in 10,000 years. We have rejoined two branches of the human species. We are now one common genetic group. Genetic crossbreeding continues to this day. We fly to any area around the world and mate. The mating began immediately when Columbus made contact. This was a huge, significant event, the rejoining of two branches of the human species. Whoever was right at the edge of Asia populated Europe right before the land bridge closed. Columbus just happened to be the guy who did it first. Europe was constantly looking for faster trade routes to the Indies. If it wasn't Columbus, it would have been someone else. If it hadn't happened, the human species would have had two branches separated. Your immunities would be different, etc. Another effect was the doom or the alteration of native societies. The Aztecs, for instance, lost their political independence and underwent a process in which their culture was mixed with that of Spain and became something entirely new. In Europe, it led to the exposure of corn, potatoes, tomatoes, and chocolate. Also, it started the period of colonization which led to America being formed. So cattle, sheep, and hogs were introduced to Americans. This happened through trade between Europe and the New World, America. Cotton and rubber was brought from Europe to America. America traded spices, plants, and slavery. Through trade, plants native to America got spread to grow in Europe. Agriculture, soil, which meant parts of the ecosystem might have been disrupted. Seeds needed to adapt to different soils. Also, the introduction of cattle, sheep, and goats also affected the ecosystem of America and the food chains. Also, plants adapted to different climates. The arrival of Columbus back to Spain motivated people from other countries such as France, England, Portugal, and Russia to explore these areas. The arrival of many Europeans brought democracy and capitalism to the patriarch, which changed many societies. Spain became wealthy as the money they earned through trade and helped them become the huge power of Europe. Ideas of manufacturing, free markets, philosophy, medicine, science, and others also changed and improved the lives of many in the economical aspect. As the natives died out, Africans were imported to the area to replace them as slaves for the Spanish immigrants. Thus, Africans became the main inhabitants of South America. Many European countries colonized these areas long after Columbus's death. For example, the Spanish colony in South America lasted from 1492 to 1898. For 406 years, these colonies were lost through the Spanish-American War, Cuba, and many of the colonies revolutionized. The values that the Europeans brought and what followed is a reason for America's current economical and political success. Some of these include common law, which is a legal system that is the largest, formed by the decisions previously made by courts and not imposed by legislators or other government officials. Also, the voyage impacted the 13 colonies established by the British Empire. They later declared independence from Great Britain and formed the United States. So, inevitably speaking, Columbus was the first domino that led to changes, political, societal changes in the ecosystem that we still have today. Chocolate, pigs, hogs, so on and so forth. And the irony of this is, I saw an individual who was talking about how bad Christopher Columbus was while he was eating some barbecue, and then he had some chocolate. So I wish I would have went up to him and said, "You evil, guilty European descent person, you are enjoying the spoils of the evil, racist, imperialistic European emblem of Christopher Columbus." Because what they do is, history is built upon narrative instead of these events themselves. They want to take Christopher Columbus, make him a symbol of European imperialism, racism, every ism in the book. And that is emblematic of what they're trying to do today. Take these institutions, delegitimize the impacts, and further divide the races. And that's kind of the way they're going about it. Christopher Columbus wasn't good, wasn't bad. I mean, he was just like any other individual who would colonize that area. The reason that he was looking for gold was because the people that paid for his voyage, Spain, they wanted him to find gold at any cost. And so when you go into a particular area, you find a bunch of gold, but you don't produce a lot of goods or anything of real intrinsic value. What ends up happening is hyperinflation. So Spain basically bankrupted themselves. Some of those great ships that used to be part of the Spanish Armada, they were sitting in the port and rusting over simply because when you add a bunch of money to the money supply and you don't produce real intrinsic goods, then what ends up happening is massive inflation. And that's what ended up happening to Spain.